Hi everyone, welcome back to the Wimpy Studio, and today I'm here with a different type of video for you guys. I know it's not something you're really used to seeing on my channel. I basically just stick to book, movie, and TV show reviews. That's kind of what you expect from me. But I'm a political science major. I just finished my freshman year, and I've been pretty interested in elections and everything that comes with them. And obviously this November we have the midterms, and there's some pretty interesting Senate, governor, and House races in a lot of these states come November. And I'm really going to only be covering the governor and the Senate races. House races are kind of confusing and they're kind of like a lot of races to do. So I think I'm just going to stick with the Senate and the governor races for now. But let's go ahead and dive right in. So bear with me, I'll probably make some mistakes. I do have some resources pulled up. We have the Jackson Jude election map and then also the Wikipedia page for the Senate elections. But yeah, just bear with me. I'll probably make some mistakes along the way. It's the first time I do this, but hopefully I'll get better with time. So we'll start with the safe states. We'll start with the safe blue states. This is going to include Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, and there's a few others I'll come back to later. For the Republicans, we have Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. I think that rounds out the safe states. Now, I'll cover a few states that I'm teetering on whether they're going to be likely blue or safe blue. So for my margins, 15 and over is safe. 5 to 15 is likely. 1 to 5 is lean. Anything under 1 is tilt. So I know some people do 10 and up is safe, and some people do 15 and over is safe. I'm going with 15. That is at least what this website does. 15 is kind of their standard safe margin, so I'm just going to go with that. But Virginia, I do think we'll get over 15. This is the Mark Warner seat. He won by 12 in 2020, and this will be a more favorable year for the Democrats. Plus, if we just look, Abigail Spanberger won this seat by 15 for the governor's race in 2025. So I don't think Warner will have any trouble getting this over 15. It'll probably be anywhere from that 15 to 20 margin. Minnesota, I'm a bit more skeptical on. So this is the Tina Smith seat. She's retiring, and the Democratic nominee is most likely going to be Peggy Flanagan. She's the current lieutenant governor. I think she's most likely to win. I think she's a solid candidate for what she is. She's more of that establishment candidate. The Republicans, I think, are most likely going to put up Michelle Toifoya. She's a retired sports commentator and not a bad candidate. I do think being an outsider candidate is actually a good thing in this election for a lot of Democrats. I don't necessarily think that for Republicans. I think they're going to struggle a bit more. The national environment is also going against them, so that's not going to help anything either. But we'll just look at the polling. She's up by 7, 7, and 3. So I don't think this will get to 15. One thing to keep in mind is that the governor's race is on the same ballot, and Amy Klobuchar, I think, will be destroying whoever she faces for governor. So that's definitely going to help Peggy Flanagan a lot. I don't think it's enough to get this to 15. I think she'll probably win it by anywhere from like that 12 to 14 margin. It's going to be a massive improvement from Tina Smith's performance. She only won by 5 points in 2020. Her special election, she only won by 10. I think Flanagan will definitely outperform Smith, but she will not outperform Klobuchar. I think she'll just stay slightly under that. We'll go ahead and do, there's several likely red states to get into. We'll start with the state of Montana. This is the Steve Daines seat. He unexpectedly withdrew from the race like 5 minutes before the filing deadline. So he endorsed Kurt Alme as the Republican. I don't really know much about him, but kind of your standard Republican. Alani Bankhead won the Democratic nomination. Said Bonar is running as an independent. So this is a three-way race, and obviously having an independent and a Democrat in the same race is only gonna make Kurt Alme win by more. So I'm going to assume, based on these endorsements, let's see. John Tester, former Montana senator, he endorsed said Bonar. And so did Andrew Yang. So there's like some notable Democrats that went ahead and endorsed Bonar here. I think he's going to be the best chance to get this margin down. If they keep all three of them in the race, it's just going to produce a bigger margin of victory for Almy. So assuming that Bankhead drops out, I think this race will get down to about a 12 to 14 point margin. Let's see. Dane's only won by 10, so it could even get closer. We're going to have to wait and see. There's really not been much polling out, really no polling at all. It's all hypotheticals and stuff, like three-way races and stuff. But we'll have to wait and see. I think this could get closer, but as of right now, I'm going to say it's under 15, probably anywhere from like that 12 to 14 point margin. We'll go over to Kansas next. This is the Roger Marshall seat. He won by 11 points in 2020. I definitely think this could get a little bit closer. Kansas, I'm pretty sure the Democrat running here is Roger Marshall. I think he's going to be the front runner. He's the pastor of the largest UMC church in the country. I think he's a good candidate. Kansas is a very religious state. I think he would definitely do well with a lot of independents here, but I mean, obviously, Trump won Kansas by 16 points, so I don't think this is going to be all that competitive, but I do think it could probably drop down to like an 8 to 10 point win for Roger Marshall. I think Adam Hamilton will definitely make some inroads there. Moving over to the state of Mississippi, this is the Cindy Hyde Smith seat, and she's pretty unpopular. But again, it's Mississippi, so it's really hard to say if that would really hurt her chances all that much. She only won by 10 in 2020 and 7 in 2018. So I think this is going to be like a 7 to 10 point race at the end of the day. I think she'll only win by, yeah, like 7 to 10. I don't know much about this Scott Cullum guy, but he seems to be a good Democrat and a good option for like a good alternative for Hyde Smith, but I still think she'll hold on. It's deep red Mississippi. Trump won here by 23 points in 2024, so I just don't see it getting all that competitive, but it will be pretty close still at the end of the day, closer than it usually is. We'll go over to South Carolina next. This is the Lindsey Graham seat, and he's pretty unfavorable. I don't think he's in any huge trouble of losing, but it definitely could get a lot closer. Annie Andrews is going to be his Democratic opponent. Polling is showing um, within like a 5 to 6 point range here. I think he'll ultimately end up being a bit more than that. Graham won by 10 points in 2020. So I think it's going to kind of be like Mississippi, where it's going to be in that 7 to 10 point margin for Graham at the end of the day. So I think Mississippi and South Carolina and Kansas, honestly, will vote pretty close to each other. I think Montana will probably be a little bit more. But yeah, these races, I don't actually expect Democrats to win them, but they are definitely races I'm keeping my eye on for sure. We'll also go down to Florida. This is a race I don't really think Democrats have the best shot in. Florida went to Trump by 13 points in 2024. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be all that competitive. Ashley Moody, I don't know much about her, but I think she's kind of your standard Republican. She was appointed to fill Marco Rubio's seat. She's most likely going to be going up against Alex Vindman. I don't know much about him either, but I don't think he's really going to like drag down the margins a whole lot. You see here, these are Democratic internals, one of them showing him up, one of them showing him only trailing Moody by 3 points. She's not really reaching 50% in a lot of these polls, so that is something to consider. Perhaps it could be closer than we think. But at the end of the day, I also think it's going to be in that 7 to 10 point margin. I think this will be closer than the governor's race. I think Byron Donalds will do very well in Florida, but it's just not going to be that competitive at the end of the day. We're going to end our likely red states with the state of Nebraska. This is the Pete Ricketts seat, and he's running against Dan Osborne again. Dan Osborne ran for the seat in 2024, and he only lost by 6.7 points, which is a big deal for a candidate in Nebraska. Trump carried the state on the same ballot by 20 points. So Dan Osborne's a good candidate, but Pete Ricketts is a good incumbent, a lot better than Deb Fischer. So that is something to keep in mind. I think Pete Ricketts will still keep the state like pretty locked in for the Republicans. It won't be like a huge margin. I think he'll ultimately kind of go the same margin of victory it did for Deb Fischer. I think it's going to be in that 6 to 7 point range, but it could get down to 5. I'm going to say that 5 is the closest that Osborne will get. It's still going to stay in the likely red column, though. Okay, so let's go over to the likely blue states. We're going to start with the state of North Carolina, and this is the Tom Tillis seat. He's retiring. And we have Michael Whatley for the Republicans and Roy Cooper for the Democrats. I don't know a lot about Whatley. He's just kind of your boring, standard Republican, just kind of irrelevant. He's just not really getting any attention at all. Roy Cooper, meanwhile, he is the perfect candidate to flip the seat towards the Democrats. He's easily the best recruit they got because this is a must flip. They realize that they need to flip North Carolina if they want a good chance at retaking the Senate. And currently, Cooper is leading the polls by 8 points. I don't think he'll win by 8, but it's definitely in the realm of possibility that he could win by that much. I'm going to go and say he's probably going to win by anywhere between 6 and 7 points, but Roy Cooper is an exceptionally strong candidate for the state of North Carolina. Georgia is next. This is the Jon Ossoff seat, and Jon Ossoff has raised a shit ton of money. It is the most expensive Senate race of the cycle. He's going up against either Mike Collins or Derek Doley. Most likely going to be Mike Collins at the end of the day. I think he's probably the stronger candidate, but neither of them are all that great. I guess Derek Doley does have Brian Kemp's endorsement. I don't know how much that's going to matter at the end of the day, but I mean, we look at the polls. He's also has leading Collins by about 4. He's leading Doley by about almost 7. I think whether it's Collins or Doley, I think he's still going to win by over 5. It's probably going to be like 5 to 6 point win for Ossoff. He's a good incumbent, and he's just not facing anyone notable. If he had been facing Brian Kemp, I think this would have been a lot closer. I think there's a little bit of polling here, Kemp leading all of them. I still think probably Ossoff still would have won because it's just a more favorable year to the Democrats, but it definitely could have been a lot closer. So, yeah, so North Carolina and Georgia, I think, will probably be around the same margin at the end of the day. We'll also go up to New Hampshire. This is going to be the Jeanne Shaheen seat, and she's retiring, and Chris Pappas is running as the Democratic nominee, and John E. Sununu, the former senator from this seat, is running for the Republicans. Now, on paper, Sununu is a good candidate, but it's just not a great year for Republicans, and it's a better year for Democrats. Currently, the average shows Pappas leading Sununu by about 4. I think he'll ultimately win by more than that. I think it will be anywhere from like a 6 to 10 point victory, but I'm going to say at the end of the day, Pappas will probably win by about 8 against Sununu. Sununu's a good candidate. It's just not the year for him to run if he really wants to get his seat back. It's not really the year for that. We'll go up to Michigan. This is the Gary Peters seat. He is retiring, and the Democratic primary is convoluted, to say the least. We have Abdul El Sayed, we have Mallory McMorrow, and we have Haley Stevens. They're all going at it. And currently, the polling averages show Abdul El Sayed has taken the lead slightly, but Haley Stevens had the lead for a while, and then Mallory McMorrow took the lead briefly, and now El Sayed has the lead. So it's really anyone's game at this point. If I had to make a guess, it'll probably end up being El Sayed or Stevens at the end of the day. McMorrow, I just think has been struggling as of late, which is a shame because I think she's actually the strongest general election candidate. I think she could easily beat Mike Rogers by over 5. If it's El Sayed, I think he'll probably beat Rogers by about 2. If it's Stevens, she'll probably beat him by about 4. So I think whichever candidate it is, they will still end up beating Mike Rogers. I mean, Mike Rogers did very well. He only lost to Alyssa Slotkin by a little over a quarter of a point, which is extremely well. But I mean, if he lost in a more red wave year, there's no way he's gonna win in a blue wave year. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say this is a lean blue state for the time being. The primaries aren't until August, so it's very possible that McMorrow or another candidate could drop out before then. If McMorrow drops out, I think it's anyone's game between El Sayed and Stevens. If she stays in, I think McMorrow and Stevens will probably split a lot of the vote and then therefore hand El Sayed the victory. That's just kind of my opinion. We're going to go up to the state of Maine, and this is the Susan Collins seat. And obviously, one thing to keep in mind about Susan Collins is that she completely outperformed the polls in 2020. Sarah Gideon was basically leading all these polls against Susan Collins, and Susan Collins still came out and she beat Sarah Gideon by 8.5 points. So, which obviously is a massive, massive drop from her 37-point win in 2014. So that is something to keep in mind. She did severely underperform that performance, but she also overperformed Biden and the polls. So it's very possible she could overperform the polls again. If we're looking at the race this year, she's running against Graham Plattner, and Graham Plattner's leading by an average of 6 points. But if we notice here, once the scandals came out about him, his polling dropped a lot worse. He's tied here. He's leading her by 4 points here, not even reaching 50%. She's in the mid 40s here. So this is concerning for Plattner. We could very well see another 2020 situation play out. I would not be surprised. But this is a more favorable year to the Democrats. So far, Graham Plattner's scandals have just not tanked him as much as most people thought they would, and Susan Collins is more unfavorable. So I think all those factors tied into each other, I think, will give Plattner the win, probably by about 3 points after all the ranked choice voting is tabulated. It won't be as big of a margin as these polls are suggesting. He's not going to win by 6 points, but I think he'll ultimately win by about three. Okay, we're gonna go over to the state of Iowa next. This is the Joni Ernst seat. She is retiring. Oh my gosh, I've clicked on so many pages. And the Republican for this seat is Ashley Hinson. She's a strong candidate. She definitely overperformed in her district elections. She's a good, like, standard Republican for this seat. I mean, Trump won Iowa by 13 points in 2024. The last time Joni Ernst was up for re-election, she only won by 6.5 points. I think this will be even closer, not because Hinson's a bad candidate, because she's not, but more favorable year to the Democrats. Rob Sands also running for the governor race, and that could very well make the Senate race a lot closer. And Josh Turk's a good Democrat. He has a compelling story. Paralympic in a wheelchair. I think that could connect with a lot of voters. I also think he's going to be good for getting kind of cutting into that rural parts of Iowa, taking away some of that support for Henson, which you really need if you want to win in Iowa. Now, the polls so far have been pretty close. I'm still going to say that Henson's going to win, probably by 3 to 4 points at the end of the day. It's definitely a pickup opportunity for Democrats. I just don't think they're going to get there as of right now. I think Josh Turk is going to come up short. Ashley Henson's a good candidate at the end of the day, and Josh Turk is too, but it's an R+13 state. So I think Henson's going to win by about 3 to 4. We're going to go down to Alaska next, and this is the Dan Sullivan seat, and he's pretty unfavorable. He's going to be running against former Rep. Mary Patola, and so far the polls, like, Mary Patola's led in every single poll since she's entered the race. She entered the race in January. She's led in every single poll against him. Not all of them by 50%, but several of them have been 50%. Alaska Survey Research is a good poll, so I do trust them for these. I do think she has the advantage here. If we look at his 2020 performance, he only won by 12, which is better than some of these others like Marshall, Graham, Hyde Smith, better than some of the others, but still, I definitely think he's going to be in trouble. Mary Patola is a great candidate for the state of Alaska. I think she is the best option, really the only option of someone I think that could actually flip the seat to the Democrats. And as of right now, I do think she's going to flip it. I think she's going to win it by about 1 to 2 points. It's going to be extremely close. I could even see it getting down to a tilt margin. I could also see at the end of the day Sullivan winning by under a point. But I'm going to go ahead and give it to Patola. I think by the end of it, she's going to win by 1 to 2 points. All right. Let's go. Let's go up to Ohio. I'm going to save Texas for last because I think that is the most interesting race. Ohio, this is a special election to fill the rest of J.D. Vance's term, which means that whoever wins this election is going to be up for election again in 2028, because that's when Vance's term was up. So If John Husted wins, I mean, I don't think he would have any issue winning again in 2028. If Sherrod Brown wins, I think he's going to have more of an issue because if we look at Sherrod Brown's performances, the only presidential year he ran in that he won in was 2012, and this was when Obama won the state by 3 points. So, and then Harris lost the state by 11 in 2024, and he lost by 3.6%. So, I honestly just don't see Brown being able to win in 2028. Now, 2026, he does have a real shot in. If we look at the polling here, it's not great for Brown, but he did lead by 8 points in a most recent poll, which is a massive improvement considering he was down here with Houston hitting 50%. So this was kind of concerning, but yeah, he's leading by 8 here. So this does look better for him. He's a great candidate for the state of Ohio. Houston's like a relatively normal Republican, which I do think is going to help him. He's going to definitely outperform Vivek Ramaswamy, in my opinion, who's an extremely weak Republican. He's running for the governor's race, but this is still going to be very close. It could honestly go either way. I would not be surprised if Houston held on, and I would not be surprised if Brown flipped it. Personally, I think Sherrod Brown should have ran for the governor's seat because he would be up in 2030 and then he could retire then if he wanted to. Or here, he's going to have to run again in 2028 if he wins, and then he wouldn't be up until 2034. But I think Schumer wanted him to run because he thought he would be the best option to flip the seat, which I do think he is. I do think he's the best option for the Democrats. So I'm conflicted. I go back and forth with Ohio, but I still think Houston will hold on to this race by 1 to 2 points. I think Alaska will go to Patola by 1 to 2, and I think Houston will win by 1 to 2 in Ohio. So Democrats have to win in Texas if they want to win the Senate majority. And my dad has been freaking out about James Tallarico. He is a huge fan of him. He's running against Ken Paxton, who is an exceptionally weak candidate. And if he was running in anywhere other than Texas, if he was running in North Carolina, if he was running in like a more of a normal swing state, even in Iowa or Ohio, I could see this going to the Democrat. But he's running in deep red Texas. Now, he's not going to be winning by the same margin that Trump did in 2020, which is 13.7 packs. I mean, this is going to be like a lean or tilt state regardless. It's going to be decided by under 5. Now, if John Cornyn had won his race, I think he would have beat Tallarico by a good amount. But obviously, that's not the case at the end of the day. Yeah, these look. I mean, it's good for Tallarico because, to my knowledge, Beto never led in any of the polls, and Tallarico is leading in some of these polls, so that is a good sign for him. But it's deep red Texas. Tallarico's also not hitting 50% in any of these polls, and I do think Paxton will win over a lot of undecideds. They will probably reluctantly vote for him because he's a Republican. James Tallarico, he's also said a lot of controversial things in the past. I think his whole there's like 6 genders type thing, God's non-binary. I think some of those stuff will hurt him in the state of Texas. It's still going to be incredibly close. I think it could very well get to like a tilt red margin. I think it could be decided by under a point, but I'm going to go ahead and say that at the end of the day, after everything is counted, that Paxton will win the seat by about 2. Maybe even less. It could be decided by a similar margin as Ohio. But for the time being, I think Texas will still go to Paxton. But I would not be surprised if Tallarico can do this come November. We're just going to wait and see. If he gets over 50% in a lot of these polls, then I could very well see him winning. But right now, I'm going to keep it like that. So it's going to be a tie for my first Senate prediction video for the month of June. And obviously, this would give Republicans the Senate majority, with Vance breaking that tie. But I'm not counting Democrats out. They could very easily win in Ohio. I think that is their best option. Brown could easily win this state. I'm just giving it to Houston right now. Texas, I think Tallarico has a shot in, but I still think he's going to come up short. Iowa, I think, will be a bit harder of a climb for Turek, but I'm also not rolling it out either. I honestly don't think any of these other states will end up going to the Democrats, but it's not impossible. States like Montana, Nebraska, Kansas, Mississippi, South Carolina, they're in the realm of possibility. I don't see Florida flipping. But let me know down below what you think the results are going to be for the Senate elections come November. And next week, I'm going to plan to do a gubernatorial prediction, my first one. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.